this Marine said, do you want a piece of a piece of the statue? And I said, well, I only wanted a little bit, as a keepsake. He come back with a sledgehammer and a big Jimmy bar, and as his mate is cutting the hand off, that hand of the statue with a disc cutter. We're smashing at this. He said, buddy, what piece do you want? I said, oh, any piece. He said, well, wait. I said, give me that piece of his arse. And that's what it was. I only wanted a small piece. I've got a real big piece of his arse. And that's why it says, bring me the arse of Saddam. That's what's the name of the book. And anyway, I got this thing, and the guys are still at the Palestine Hotel. The crowds have sort of died down, but they realised they'd better get inside and out of the way of it all. But there was still a lot of loitering going on. I went and seen JY and said, look, mate, I'm not happy here. I want to get into cover. I want to get sorted out. And because at that time I was still an individual, I could have gone anywhere I wanted to, But it was just a safety in numbers. And Nick Punnell had the through-wire phone that he could call back to London and send my stories back. So I put this big piece of arse. I thought, what the fuck do I do with it? And I thought, if I'll put it behind as a bullet catcher with all the rest of the sandbags. Yeah, because anything that stops secondary fragmentation is good, isn't it? I mean, anything to slow it down. So that was it. And after a week or so, JY and the team had to go up north to Crete. I said, my job's done here. Half the guys on the team were being replaced. I took Jeremy. I took Jeremy Thompson back, the ex-Sky Command, back in a convoy, and I read them the right act because normally I like to travel alone, but they wanted to come back, so I told them what to do. We had some scary moments exfilling from Baghdad city. We eventually, hours and hours later, we got to the border back in Kuwait. The Kuwaiti police wouldn't let us in. They didn't believe we'd been to Baghdad. We got arrested at the border. And then we were taken into the police station and plied with Coca-Cola and fresh fruit and dates. And, it was just so glorious to be there. And the chief of police here didn't believe. So they searched the vehicle, didn't believe we'd been to Baghdad. But eventually I got him to speak to my sheikh, and that was it. But before they'd done that, they'd searched all the vehicles, and some of the guys had come back with magazines, and Jeremy had this picture of Saddam Hussein we'd picked up somewhere. So they went mad on that. And when they were looking at my piece of bronze and that, he said, what is this? I said to the guard, I said, oh, it's stop the bullets, like sandbags, bullet catcher, He went, oh, okay. And that was it. So they let us through, and a few days in my apartment, I decided to go back to London. I thought I'd take the arse back to London with me. So I went up to BA, booked a flight, extra baggage, and I had to go down the souk and buy this real big plastic case for it. Big suitcase. So I did it. So I went up to BA, and the guy was there, and it was so caricature of the guy that was checking in my baggage. He said, oh, baggage, put that. He said, oh, that's extra baggage. I said, oh, extra. He said, that'll be, I can't remember whether it was 300 pounds extra or 200. I can't remember exactly what the figure was. He said, what's in the case, sir? I said, Saddam's arse. And he just laughed. And it was at the time when, there was still the Scud threat coming into Kuwait City, and they still hadn't prepared themselves properly with the security. It just seemed bizarre to me. It was like, once again, you learn through your life, don't you? When the shit hits the fan in life, unless you've experienced it previously, you don't know how to prepare yourself. You think it's never going to happen. It's like what this country's happening, going through at the moment. I'm sure the government seems to think that nothing's going to happen, and I hope to God it doesn't. But they've never had a punch on the nose, have they? They've never physically been punched on the nose. When you get a punch on the nose, your senses spark up, don't they? You get that bile in your mouth, and you get that stuff in your water. Your first ever punch on the nose. I always remember it. I remember. I don't I forgot about the others, you know. But it died, you know. So it's like that. And I was lucky enough to get the arse through, and then a few years later, the war was still going on. There was boys and girls coming back, fucking horrendous injuries. I'm going through my second divorce, so we had to sort the house out. So the arse appeared from the shed, and I thought, what can I do with that? What good can the arse become of Saddam's arse? So I put it up for auction to raise money for the Royal Centre for Defence Medicine, which was where all the injured boys and girls were coming from once they'd been flown into Germany, and for the Wounded Warriors, which was the Marines, US Marine Corps charity over there, because I thought they looked after us so well. So if I could raise a sum of money for the arse at auction and split the money 50-50, well, that's when my troubles began. Because when people started to hear about it, a friend of mine that ran an auction over in the Gulf said to me, no, he said it's worth anything. Because I thought it was worth 25-30 grand. It'd be great. That'd be lovely. He said, no, it's worth between 40 grand and 250,000. He said, you should bring it over here and we'll sell it over here. So I said, well, let's think about it. And then, oh, hell let rip. The police got in touch with me, and they wanted to basically interview me about the arse. And I said, what do you mean about the bronze? Yeah. I said, what are you on about? Oh, we've had a complaint that that you've stolen it, and it's Iraqi cultural property. And I went, stop it, mate. I'm selling it to raise money for the auction. I'm not doing it for the betterment of myself. For selling at auction for the military charities. Oh, anyway, you need to come in, and that's the first time really. You're invited to an interview. You're invited into the stick your neck in the hangman's noose, aren't you? Yeah, they invite you for an interview. So anyway, I went there, and they charged me for stealing Iraqi cultural property under United Nations Section 8, subsection A. And I said, this is crazy. And anyway, there's a story behind it, which I've described in the book. But the actual craziness of it all, that's when life started. I was charged. They didn't have the arse. I was bailed 7 times in 18 months. One time coming back, I got a call, and I'm driving my old truck, and this guy says, oh, is that Spud? I said, well, who's calling? He said, oh, this is a friend. And I went, what do you mean a friend? He said, oh, this is no duff. And like when you say no duff, it means that it's not it's true. And I just thought, oh, I'll listen to this guy, because I've been speaking to journalists for a couple of weeks since then. And he said, where's the arse? I said, you're kidding me, aren't you? Well, the arse was, I knew where the arse was. And I said, what do you want to know? He said, well, the police are coming for you. So I said, what do you mean they're coming? They're coming to your cottage. And I live in an isolated cottage, yeah, in rural Herefordshire. And I said, oh, right, really? He said, yeah, they're coming for it, and they're coming to search your place and everything. I said, well, when are they coming? He said, what's today? I said, Friday. He said, how about Monday? They were giving me the heads up on this search. Anyway, they came down and did their stuff and everything, and yeah, crazy. They didn't realise I had a firearms license. This is how crazy they were. And this is the Keystone Cop element of it all, the absurdness of it all, the amount of taxpayers' money that was spent on it, and still going on. And then when they couldn't get the arse, they did a press release saying they don't think it was the arse. They think I was trying to sell something that wasn't the arse. Yeah, it's crazy.
Nigel, so is the arse in a safe place?
Well, I gave it to Gypsy Pete, and for some reason he gave it to fucking Ken the Nose, and I don't know. He's run off with it.